Got to get it in. Does to Smith. Jabari for three and the win. Yeah! He got it.
We are here to Field Rockets News. This is the Rockets Field Podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Lashard Binkley. I'm a credentialed writer covering the Houston Rockets and the Rio Grande Valley Vipers. You can always find my written work over on Rockets on their side, which is part of Sports Illustrated. And of course, you can always find me on Twitter, X at Binkley Hoops. And of course, today's breaking news. No, it's not Kevin Durant breaking news as of yet, as teams are still working through that with the Phoenix Suns, including possibly the Houston Rockets. We're actually here to talk about Ime Udoka and his contract extension that he came to agreement with the Houston Rockets. Breaking news for us, reported by ESPN. We don't know the length of the new contract, but we do know it makes him one of the highest paid NBA coaches in the entire league. His current contract was going to end in 2026-27, so of course he had another couple of seasons, but the Rockets didn't want to waste any time. Also, we've seen teams like the New York Knicks reaching out to try to poach him away from the Houston Rockets, and the Houston Rockets already told them no. And on top of that, they told Ime that they definitely want him around for several more seasons, and I kind of want to kind of get my take on that. And I'll talk a little bit about the Kevin Durant situation at the very end, but I want to give my quick take on why the Rockets would have made the extension agreement that they did right now, and why, of course, it was the best move. Just, of course, a little bit of history. We all know the three previous seasons before Ime took over the Rockets, they only won 59 games during those rebuilding years under coach Stephen Silas. We know it's two different situations. We know the Rockets were more in the player development than trying to win during that time, but the facts are the facts. The Rockets have won 93 games in the last two seasons, made their first playoff appearance since 2020. Of course, had a whole lot more success in two seasons they had with Ime so far than the whole three seasons that they had with Coach Silas. He's completely changed the reputation of the team. I remember being in the locker room as Coach Silas last season, and a lot of times you would see that players weren't exactly upset when they lost games because they kind of knew what the situation was. And you could tell the practices were a little bit different. Now now that he switched over to Ime, I remember going to his first practice, the first training camp I was at, his very first practice when they had it out in Louisiana. You could tell the vibes were completely different. The team was all about business. It was completely serious. The way they were going about their game plans was different. You could tell it was a whole different culture under Ime than it was under Stephen Silas, and you could tell the players all respect the direction that the team is going under, and where Ime's trying to take the team. He's changed the reputation around the league. The Rockets were known as a team that nobody wanted to go play for. They were known as a team that, hey, if you play them tough, that eventually they'll fold. They were known as a team that didn't always play smart, didn't always play hard. And now it's totally different. Now you have teams. I remember talking to some of the other players after the game that were playing against the Rockets, and they will all say the same thing, that this Rockets team is extremely tough. And if you don't come with your A game, they are trying to beat you up and trying to push you around. And a lot of other players respect that. And you see that around the league now. You weren't seeing that the three previous years before Ime got here, and Ime has completely changed the culture of this team. You have respect of different players around the league, including Kevin Durant, that have played for him in the past, and teams where he coached in San Antonio, when he coached in Brooklyn, of course, where he coached in Boston. He has the respect of all the players around the league. And like I said, there was also the success on the court. The Rocks won 52 games this season. Second in the West, nobody saw that coming. Most people thought the Rockets would just be fighting for a play-in spot, let alone be second team in the West. And yes, they lost in the first round, but the fact that, again, that they were able to get to where they would get to this year says a lot. They were the number one rebounding team in the league. They had their best rebounding season since the 1970s. Of course, Steven Adams had a lot to do with that as well, but it's the culture, the mentality that Ime has put into this team. We saw it also last year when Steven Adams wasn't even playing for the Rockets. They are a team that will crash the boards. They will play hard defense. They were a top 5 defense this year after proving to a top 10 defense last season. Again, that all goes back to Ime. He has the respect of the players. He's a no-nonsense coach. You rarely see him smiling. He pretty much will get directly to the point when you ask him a question. And that's something that this Rockets team desperately needed. Even though they do have two veterans in the starting lineup. They're still a fairly young team with Jalen Green and alperensengun and Tari Eason and Jabari Smith and Ahmed Thompson. They're still they're still a very young team at the end of the day. So you need that type of leadership at the top, and that's something that I know the Fertittas are definitely see that they got in MA, of course, Rafael as well. And that's why they went ahead and made this extension. Of course, they also saw that a lot of people were, a lot of other teams were starting to say, hey, we may want Ime to come coach for us, especially when his contract is up. And the Rockets didn't make the same mistake they did with Mike D'Antoni, where they let him go all the way to his last season, then try to negotiate. And at that point, it was too late. The Rockets knew from the start that they didn't want to make that same mistake twice, and that's why they went ahead and gave Ime that extension 2 years ahead of when his actual contract was going to run out. So now you have him in place. Of course, the Rockets already worked out a deal with Steven Adams. They worked out extension for a new deal for him for 3 years, so they have that in place, and it's a great contract because it's a contract that starts at a high point and actually works its way down to 3 years. So that's a great contract with them. So of course now you got your head coach, you got your great backup center who at the time was one of your top 2 players, especially in the playoffs. You have him coming back, and again, yes, Ime has his faults. Yes, we do know that it's some things that he has to improve on when it comes to rotations at time, when it comes to offensive philosophy. We definitely understand he has to work on that. But overall, it has been a complete success bringing in Ime, and that's why the Rockets went so fast bringing him in. When they had potentially were going to interview several coaches before they brought Ime in, but then they saw they had opportunity to bring him in, and they went right at it because they knew if they didn't hire him, there was going to be several other teams that were definitely going to try to bring him in, and that's why they brought him in so quickly. And they seem now 2 years later that it's all paying off, and the sky's the limit right now as we see in the NBA. There's a lot of parity in the league. If you're going to try to win, the time is to try to win now. And the best way to do that is have continuity, and that starts with your head coach. And that's why the Rockets, again, have signed Ime Udoka to a contract extension. Again, we'll find out how long it is. It'll probably be another 3 or 4 years tacked on to the 2 years he already had left. But we'll find out more details as the season goes on. But also quickly, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Kevin Durant situation. I talked about this, a few days ago. Not a lot has changed. We keep hearing different teams are his preferred list, different teams are in the league. It's always kind of hard to know who's telling the truth, because a lot of times, even if they are getting information from inside sources, sometimes the inside sources is just telling them what they want them to know, not necessarily what's going on. So people may be actually having these sources and may not be lying, but they're not necessarily getting the truth from these teams. So it's kind of hard to always tell exactly who's telling the truth or who knows exactly what's going on in the situation. But one thing is for sure, the Rockets are trying to possibly bring Kevin Durant in, but they're bringing him in on their terms. They're not going to go out and, like I said before, I would not trade Jalen and Jabari for Kevin Durant. I just would not do that. Now, if you're talking about Jalen and maybe salary filler, that makes a lot more sense. But I'm not giving up Jalen Green and Jabari Smith for a 37-year-old who will be 37 when the season starts, Kevin Durant, who also has injury history and who also, let's face it, is coming towards the end of his career. So he's still a great player. If you can get him for the right price, I would say absolutely go for it. But it has to be the right price. You're the Rockets. You have all the leverage. You're the team that doesn't have to make a trade. You're the team that won 52 games last year. Phoenix is a team that didn't even make the play-in game last year. And also, you own Phoenix's next 3 picks, so you have all the leverage in the situation. If they want you to up the offer, like they're saying in the reports now that Phoenix is wanting better offers, if they want you to do that, if I'm the Rockets, I'm saying you either take the offer that we gave you. If you don't like the offer, well, basically you can kick rocks and have a good rest of your time looking at us taking your next 3 picks, knowing that especially your 2027, 2029 picks are probably going to be in a lottery again, depending on what you get for Kevin Durant. So that's the position I would take if I'm the Rockets. I'm not going in and giving you everything you want when I hold all the leverage. Well, I could easily just say I'm not making a trade, and we will still be a better team next season. So again, we'll see how it all plays out. But again, the Rockets do not need to make any ridiculous offers for Kevin Durant when you're the one holding all the cards at the end of the day. Of course, we have the draft coming up next week. We'll see if the Rockets actually hold on to that pick. If any more breaking news pops off, I might actually have a podcast coming out this weekend. We'll see how that plays out. But if any breaking news pops off again, I definitely will jump on and get my thoughts on it. So again, if you are subscribed to the channel, thank you for the support. Make sure you like the video. Let me know down in the comments what do you think about the contract extension for Ime Udoka and what do you think about the whole Kevin Durant Houston Rockets situation. And if you're not subscribed, please make sure you hit the subscribe button. That definitely helps out the channel. And as usual, we appreciate all the support. Make sure you check out the next episode of the Rocket Fuel Podcast.